So we welcome you all.
Thank you.
Psychologues Magazine presents UTSA mental health event. Let's make it a reality. Psychologues is India's first print magazine based on mental health. It is an initiative and effort towards reaching out to people, educating them about the importance of mental health, various issues related to mental health, and how it can be improved. And throughout the month of October, we will be spreading awareness on the importance of mental health by conducting various speaker sessions. We welcome you, ma'am. And for today's session, our topic is mental health issues of acid attack victims or survivors. So, as we already know, acid attack is a heinous crime. And acid attack victims की जिंदगी में कई प्रॉब्लम्स आती हैं, चाहे वो इमोशनल हो, साइकोलॉजिकल हो, बहुत सारे इश्यूज उनको फेस करने पड़ते हैं. And according to NCRB data, there are a lot of cases, around 1,500 cases that of acid attack victims, and the cases are increasing day by day. But what about the issues that they faces, the psychological issues they faces? And in this session, we are going to talk about it. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ariba. First of all, I would take this opportunity to thank Psychologues Magazine for giving me the opportunity to talk about the mental health issues of acid attack victims and for taking this initiative to organize UTSA. So before we proceed to today's discussion, I would like to tell everyone who's present here that you might know that a few years back, United Nations had developed Sustainable Development Goals. And the whole objective of Sustainable Development Goals was to achieve inclusiveness for all by the year 2030. And despite that, there are various segments of the society that remain excluded and suffer from various consequences, mental health issues as a result of such exclusion. And one such section of the society that experiences exclusion and related mental health issues is the segment of acid attack victims. So today we are going to talk about their mental health issues, and we are also going to talk about certain solutions that we can implement, some strategies that we can implement to improve their mental health conditions. So I wanted to share my screen. Will that be possible? It says the host has disabled. It says host has disabled participant screen sharing. Can I share?
Yes, ma'am. Just a second.
Okay.
So, ma'am, what do you think about this topic? It is a very sensitive topic.
And it is a very sensitive topic, and I had been working it as a part of my PhD research. And even now, today, after even after completing my PhD, I have been associated with this work. I'm continuously working towards it because this is something that we really need to talk about. Because, as I said, that this is a section of the society that often gets abandoned and excluded, and they face a lot of problems. I hope the screen is visible to everyone. Yes, all right. So, if we talk about acid attack, as Ariba also mentioned, that it is a heinous crime. It's a relatively new kind of a crime that involves throwing or spraying acid on an individual with the intention of harming, hurting, injuring, maiming, disfiguring, or killing them. But interestingly, it is not as new as one might think, because this did not start in India, or this did not start in Southeast Asia. This started in Victorian era Britain at the time of the Industrial Revolution, when acid was being manufactured for industrial purposes. However, gradually people started using it for settling labor clashes and domestic clashes, and gradually it also started spreading to the other parts of the world. Like currently, it's very much prevalent in Sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, Latin America for that matter. And also, over time, it acquired a gendered aspect. So in the past, equal number of males and females were the target of acid attack. But over time, if you see, more women are the victims of acid attack and more offenders are males. In fact, according to the data of the National Crime Records Bureau of India, 85% of victims of acid attack are females. And day by day, the cases are also increasing. There has been a significant rise in the number of cases over the years. And despite this rise in the number of cases, the discourse about their rehabilitation remains restricted to either seeking treatment, medical treatment for these acid attack victims, seeking justice for them, and ensuring that the offender gets punished. However, the talks about their psychological rehabilitation, the talk about their psychosocial impact of acid attack on victims, that remains limited. That gets lost somewhere because the physical injuries resulting from acid attack are so intense that they garner most of the attention at the cost of all the other aspects of this crime. And it is very important to understand that this victimization experience is very unique. It cannot be compared to any other form of gender based violence. Why? Because it is the face that gets affected. It leaves behind scars which acts as a reminder of this attack throughout their lives. So we are going to talk about some of the mental health issues that they face. And one of the most significant impact that they have is that of loss of self-identity. Now, often for men, you might notice that often for men, their identity is associated with the work that they do, with the occupation that they are associated with. But if you talk about as women, most of them, like for them, their identity is often associated with their face. Even if they are employed, even if they have a meaningful job, people still, like society is still structured in a way that their identity is often restricted to how they look, it is restricted to how their bodies are. And this is the whole idea behind acid attack. The intention behind an acid attack is never to kill the individual, it is to push that individual into a life of misery, to take that face away from them. That the whole idea is that your utility, your worth is with your face. And if I take away that face, your utility, your worth as a human, just vanishes with that. In fact, like one of the participants said that he thought that by destroying my face, ruin he will ruin my life, and he even succeeded to a great extent. Apart from that, we form identities through our occupations, right? Through the jobs that we do, through the roles that we are associated with. And many of these victims, they lose jobs as a result of acid attack. Sometimes it is because they have to often take time off from work because they have to seek treatment. Sometimes they develop certain disabilities as a result of the attack, so they lose their jobs. So this also results in loss of identity. Also, because of the prejudiced treatment of the society, they often find it difficult to find new jobs. Like one particular victim reported that she told me that the owner of the store said that I cannot give you the job because the customers will get scared. So not only are they losing their identity, but they are also facing difficulty in forming new identities. Then most of them, they are abandoned by their family members. So again, that leads to loss of relational identity. And regardless of gender, I just mentioned that yes, for women, their identities are often associated with their faces and bodies. But regardless of the gender, face in general is a very important aspect of our identity. And that is the very target of an acid attack. So loss of self-identity is one of the most significant psychosocial impact of acid attack. If we talk about another psychosocial impact, another thing that comes to mind is the experience of betrayal trauma. So we all know that the term trauma itself means injury, and when we use the term physical trauma, that means we are talking about physical injury. Psychological trauma refers to psychological injury resulting from the experience of some tragic event or some traumatic event. Betrayal trauma is a kind of a psychological trauma which results from violation of trust or well-being of an individual. So whenever an individual experiences acid attack or any other kind of victimization which is so heinous, it shatters their very faith in humanity. So the first violation that occurs is the faith, is the violation of faith in humanity. It's very difficult for these victims as well as for us to believe like how an individual, how a human who's just like us, who has emotions just like us, is capable of doing something so cruel. And this kind of betrayal trauma is more severe among those victims who have been victimized either by their family members, maybe it is their father or husband, because these are people who are actually supposed to take care of them, and instead are the ones who become offenders. One particular victim said that even to this date, I cannot believe that it was my husband who did such a disgusting crime. He threw acid on my private parts. He was my husband. He was supposed to protect me. Instead, he was the one who committed this heinous crime. And the only reason why this particular victim was targeted was that she decided to keep her baby. She refused to get an abortion had it been a girl. So this is the extent to which their trust is violated, and that leads to a lot of psychological issues in the form of betrayal trauma. This betrayal trauma is also experienced by victims who are abandoned by their families, because any one of us would expect that if we experience any kind of a crisis situation, our family members, our friends would stand by us. But these people, they were abandoned by many of them. Their parents rejected them, their husbands rejected them, their peers and colleagues, they stopped talking to them. So this was another impact of acid attack that I have been able to observe through my research. Third is the feeling of self-blame. So when I was doing my research, what I did was primarily it was a qualitative study. So yes, we were like taking qualitative interviews and analyzing those narratives. But apart from that, we had also administered few tests which included Beck Depression Inventory. Now in Beck Depression Inventory, there is a specific question that is related to the issue of self-blame and guilt, and it specifically asks, क्या आप खुद को दोषी मानते हैं? And when this question was directly posed to these victims, all of them, practically all of them said, no, he's the offender, he's the one who has committed the crime, he should be the one who should be ashamed. Why should I feel any guilt or shame or blame because of that? And it seems logical enough. But when we had more detailed interviews with them and when we spent more time, in retrospect, majority of these women, they expressed self-blame, they expressed some degree of guilt. And this was manifested in statements like, had I said yes for marriage, probably this would not have happened. Had I not slapped him the other day, probably this would not have happened. Had I reached there on time, maybe I could have escaped the attack. Or had I not taken that particular route that day, then probably this would not have happened. And even though like they're also in denial of this experience of guilt. So this increases their psychological distress and also hinders their process of coping and psychological rehabilitation. Apart from that, hopelessness. If you talk to any victim of acid attack, you will feel that they are hopeless about various aspects of future life. They might seem hopeful, like after some time, after a few years have passed, after they have had treatment for their injuries. But still, like if you spend more and more time with them, you will find that there is some degree of hopelessness, especially pertaining to different aspects of future life. It could be about finding a job, that I will not find any job, or I will not find a job that is good enough. I will probably never get married, or it can be hopelessness about life in general. Like one victim told us that I have to save money for my sister's marriage because I will not get married, that much I know. Because no one would marry a woman who has a face like this. So this is the extent to which they become hopeless about their condition. They become hopeless about their future life. And even though, luckily, yes, there are cases where acid attack victims are now getting married, they are being accepted. But if you compare the number of cases, number of people who have been acid attacked and those who have been socially accepted, there is a huge discrepancy there. So still a lot needs to be done in that aspect. Then social exclusion. Now, social exclusion in itself is not a mental health symptom, but it is an event, it is something that leads to a lot of mental health issues. Majority of these acid attack victims, they were excluded in the aftermath of the acid attack. Now, when an individual is attacked, in like immediately after the attack, they desperately seek social support because they need to be taken to the hospital. They need first aid. But people don't want to get involved in this situation. Why? Firstly, because no one wants to get involved with the police and court case and the criminal justice system. Secondly, it is very difficult to touch someone on whom acid has been thrown, because even if a drop of acid gets on our hands, even our hands will get burnt. So sometimes people just try to maintain a distance. Even if they want to help, they do not provide the kind of social support that these people need. Apart from that, they seek for emotional support, social support from their family members, which a number of times they do not receive. Some of them have been rejected by their own parents, by their then existing husbands, by their fiancés for that matter, by their friends, colleagues. All of them break ties with them. However, yes, there are some victims who do receive some support from their family members. And if we compare the coping process, if we compare the recovery of these two groups of victims, you will find that those who received social support, their recovery and their ability to deal with their circumstances was much better than those who did not receive any support. They find difficulty in finding suitable grooms for marriage. They find difficulty in finding jobs. One particular victim reported that the very principal of her school asked her to drop out from school because the students will get scared. And there was another individual who was working in the regional film industry, the Bhojpuri film industry. And when she was acid attacked for no fault of hers, she was abandoned by her father. And the grandmother also kept on repeating the same statement again and again, that she has brought shame to the family and she's of no use. No one will marry her now and she cannot even earn something. So she's of no use to the family now. This is the extent to which they get excluded, and sometimes they themselves exclude themselves. Like they themselves isolate, they withdraw away from the society. Why? Because they experience a lot of stares, a lot of prejudice treatment. They have scars and they receive a lot of stares. So they withdraw, they become isolated. And even when people try to support them, they sometimes give them unwanted attention. Like, oh my God, you are so bechara, so many bad things have happened to you. All they need is acceptance. They do not want this undue attention that they often receive from people. In fact, victims have reported that people look at them like they are an alien, which is a big issue, and it does have an impact, a detrimental impact on their mental health. If we further talk about, if you talk to any acid attack victim, chances are that you might come across several cognitive distortions that they might be holding. Cognitive distortions are basically biased ways of thinking. So it is possible that these acid attack victims, they hold on to certain biased ways of thinking that can interfere with their recovery process. For example, overgeneralization, which refers to the tendency of taking few instances and then generalizing it over the whole pattern. So like sometimes they might feel that if I'm a victim now, I will remain a victim forever. I've been branded as a victim. I have been branded as a victim by all, right? And I will remain a victim throughout life. For example, one particular woman reported that I have been raped. And I thought, what could have been worse for a woman than being raped? But then I was acid attacked too. And now my offenders are behind bars, but what difference does it make? If not them, the society will continue to victimize me. And this kind of overgeneralization that I will always remain a victim, I have been branded as a victim for life, this does not let them cope with their circumstances. Apart from that, self blame and fallacy of fairness is also kind of a cognitive distortion which is common among acid attack victims. So, fallacy of fairness is the belief that the world is fair and whatever happens, happens because we deserve it, because the life is fair. Many of these victims fall for fallacy of fairness. They believe that they are suffering today, they are leading this life of misery because they must have done something bad previously. Like if you can see on the screen itself, there was a victim who reported that I think I must have done something bad in my previous life and I'm paying for it in this life. It is crucial to remove these cognitive distortions if we want to ensure that their mental health improves. If we talk about, like, we have been talking a lot about the kind of problems that they face, and this is in addition to the physical injuries that they experience. They have pulmonary disorders, they lose their eyes, sometimes it results in partial blindness or complete blindness, sometimes temporary, sometimes permanent. Sometimes their mouth and noses, they are rendered useless, they cannot use it, and their movements also become restricted because they are left behind with a lot of scars, and thick scars are formed because of which the movement also becomes difficult. There are so many physical implications of this attack that the psychological impact does not get that much of attention. But today we discussed some of the major problems. Like there are a range of issues that they experience. For example, body image issues. If you talk to them indirectly, you will, even the ones who claim that they have been rehabilitated, they have been able to cope with their circumstances, they will claim that, okay, I'm fine and inner beauty is more important, outer beauty doesn't matter. But the more time you spend with them, the more you realize that they are hesitant about talking about their body image issues. Their views about the appearances are not very true. They are just trying to defend themselves from the anxiety that arises because of these issues. So today we are also going to talk about some of the strategies that may help us to actually improve their mental health conditions. The first thing is social support. We have been talking about how this community gets excluded from the society. And one thing which has been found to be extremely effective in their recovery process, in their coping process, was the support that they received. It could be informational support, like in 2014, I had been working with rape victims. And during those interactions, I realized that many of these victims, even though they had filed cases with the police, they did not know that FIR is supposed to be followed by a charge sheet. So they did not have a lot of information about the laws. So sometimes the support has to be informational in nature. But for majority of the times, it also has to be emotional in nature. It has to be in the degree to which they need, because it is possible that you might feel, okay, I've given enough social support to these victims, but it may not be in the extent in which they are expecting it. So you have to ensure that the social support is as per the need of the individual. And this social support can go a long way to act as a buffer against various stresses and also help in coping. So this emotional support from family, friends, informational support, instrumental support can go a long way in the psychological rehabilitation of acid attack victims. Like one victim reported that I had completely isolated myself, I had withdrawn and I would not go out. But my father, he kept on pushing me that, no, you have the strength, you can do it. He would take me out for walks. And he would constantly remind me that, yes, I'm brave, I'm strong. And without him, I would have probably committed suicide. So what stopped her from taking that extreme step was the support that she received from her family. And there is a stark difference that you can see among victims who received support and who did not receive support. Apart from that, like I said, that cognitive distortions, these biased ways of thinking, they interfere with this rehabilitation process, they interfere with their coping process. So it is crucial that you remove these cognitive distortions. So either therapies can be used for that, and sometimes like there is a lack of psychologists and mental health professionals who are specifically working with acid attack victims. So sometimes these removal of cognitive distortions, the responsibility for this lies on the NGOs, the social workers, and other peoples who might be associated with them. Sometimes the medical doctors, for that matter. So they try in their own way to remove these cognitive distortions. However, I truly believe that mental health professionals will be able to do a far better job than any other person in removing and addressing these cognitive distortions. Retributive justice is another thing. Now, this might seem a little new to people, that how is retribution going to help us, which is basically the idea of revenge. But here we are talking about retributive justice. So, retributive justice is based in the principle of proportionality and based in the old principle of eye for an eye. But eye for an eye would have been more barbaric. Like if someone has been attacked with acid, you throw acid on the offender as well. That would have been a barbaric way of dealing with it. So the Indian criminal justice system has come up with the idea of proportionality, that the punishment of the offender should be in proportion to the severity of the crime that has been committed. Whenever a victim is victimized, be it acid attack, be it any other form of crime, the balance is disturbed. The offender gains some kind of an advantage over the victim. And through retributive justice, we can restore that balance. It provides a kind of a closure to these victims. They feel, okay, I was denied value, I was denied being heard, but after receiving justice, I do feel that yes, I was heard. It does give me a sense of closure. It does give me a sense of justice, that this person who, because of whom I suffered, this person will also suffer in a similar manner. And they also feel that probably by this they will also be able to prevent further future cases against other people. So retributive justice makes them feel heard and feel the offender has learned his lesson. And even though this may seem not related to the mental health of the victim, but it is indirectly related to it, very much related to it. Because if they feel that their justice has not been served, they continue feeling like a victim, and they continue to remain in that passive state, and gradually a sense of learned helplessness may even develop. So that is why retributive justice, seeking justice, is equally important if we want them to rehabilitate, if we want their psychological rehabilitation to happen. Apart from that, freedom from embodiment, like we discussed, that how the identities of women are often associated with their faces. Identity of women are not seen as separate from their specific body form, and that is the whole idea of acid attack. The idea is to objectify the woman, to make her feel that your worth, your utility is with your face, and without that, you'd have no life. And sometimes this objectification is so far fetched that the woman is not even seen as a human, she's seen as a property. In many of these cases, now many people think that majority of these acid attacks are occurring because the woman has denied the proposal of the offender. He wanted to marry her, he loves her, and she has not reciprocated the same kind of feelings. However, many of these women have been attacked not because they denied something to the offender, but because the offender had a clash with one of the male family members of these women, be it over property, be it over some other dispute that they had. So the original fight was with the male member of the family, and what is the best way of taking revenge from this person is to violate that person's property. So they target the woman who is under their protection. That is the extent to which the woman is objectified in an acid attack. And it's very important to address this embodiment. It's very important to ensure that this whole idea of objectification is addressed. If we want to stop acid attack in future also, this is a long term measure that we have to address, because not only the victims need counseling, but in general people also need sensitization that we do not and should not place an undue kind of an emphasis on the outer appearance of an individual. These counseling procedures should focus on liberating the victim from viewing and identifying herself as a limiting factor, that okay, without the face I'm nothing. This should not be the case. So in fact, one participant did say that he thought that by destroying my face he will ruin my entire life. And this is the idea behind acid attack. We have to address that if we want this to stop in future. Now, in the title, like in the poster, you might have seen that I have written mental health issues of acid attack victims / survivors. Why that I have done that? That is a deliberate thing that we have done. It's not out of confusion whether to call them victims or whether to call them survivors. It is a deliberate action that I have taken to use both the terms, victims as well as survivors. Many people claim that victim is a passive word. We should not use the term victim, and we should use a more active term survivor, which means that they have been able to fight with their circumstances and they will be able to do something with their life, something great with their life. But the problem with these two terminologies is that there are advantages and disadvantages of using both these terms. First thing, if there is an individual who is feeling like a victim, who feels that she has been wronged, and you constantly keep on telling her, no, you have the ability, you have self-efficacy, go ahead, take charge of your life. Don't you feel that you are putting an undue pressure on this person who just wants to be heard, who just wants to take a minute and feel the pain and grief of what has happened? Similarly, if someone is feeling like a survivor, that yes, I want to take charge of my life, and then you constantly keep telling that person, oh, tum bichare ho, something wrong has happened to you. How will you survive now? Your life has been ruined. Now, this person who feels like a survivor, she feels confident that I can, despite what has happened in my life, I can still take charge of my life. You're constantly making that individual feel like a victim. So whether to call someone victim or survivor, that should not depend on us. It should depend on the individual that you are talking to. That if that person is feeling like a victim, use the term victim. Let that person feel like a victim for some time, so that once it comes out, then they can take charge of it. Don't put undue pressure on them. Let them become mentally prepared to take charge of their life. And if someone is feeling like a survivor, call them a survivor for that matter. Another difficulty in this case is that there is a lack of linguistic options that we can use to describe the experiences of acid attack victims. The whole idea is that why should anyone be called a victim or survivor in the first place? ठीक है, हम use कर रहे हैं terms. But then why to use these terms? These terms were created to describe an experience of an event. These were created to describe that yes, something bad happened, this is how I dealt with it. Something bad has happened, this is how I'm feeling right now. It was to describe the experience. I fail to understand how over time it becomes their identity with which they are branded for life. For example, so I'm associated with a lot of acid attack victims / survivors on social media. And there is this one person who's a social activist, and he's working with a lot of victims. So he helped in treatment of a little girl who accidentally drank acid. Accidentally. And every time the media people would cover her, every time she would be on social media, so people would ask her how did this happen? How did that happen? And it's a young child. And every time they're saying, okay, her name is this and she drank acid by accident. One day, it's just a random video, they're playing in the house and he turns the camera towards her And she says, my name is so and so, and I drank acid by mistake. So this was the identity that she associated with over time. So it is a very sad state of affairs that something that was supposed to describe their experience goes on to become their overall identity for life, which is very problematic. I have an identity, I have multiple identities for that matter. I'm a teacher, I am a mental health professional, I am someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone's friend. But after that incident, how do I just become that one survivor or just one victim? This is very problematic. So we must work in a way where we can make these victims realize that this is not your sole identity. This was an event that happened. This is the experience of that event, and you have multiple identities. You had multiple identities before the event. If you were Shalini before the attack, you will remain Shalini after the attack as well. Being a victim or a survivor is just the experience of that event. Second solution to this lack of linguistic options could be the identity disregard. Like, why do I have to call myself victim or survivor? Why can't I just neglect that identity? That no, I'm not this person. I am whatever I want to be. So in counseling, when we are dealing with these acid attack victims, this is one very important thing that we need to keep in mind, that we have to tell them about the idea of multiple identities and of identity disregard. Apart from that, we all know that many of these victims, they suffer from depression, they suffer from anxiety and different kinds of negative affectivity, such as they are very high on anger sometimes, which is directed towards the offender. There is a lot of dissatisfaction with life. All of these symptoms need to be treated with the help of therapy and counseling. So sometimes symptomatic treatment may be required, sometimes more detailed, more deeper therapies may be required. And even though there is lack of mental health professionals who are specifically dealing with this group, but even those who are not specifically dealing with such problems, even they can bring about some change, some positive influence in their life. And I think people should actually try doing that. Like, instead of looking for a specialist who can address these issues, we can actually go to mental health professionals, which are professionals which are working on the issue of depression and anxiety for that. It doesn't have to be with acid attack victims, but even that will be able to bring about some positive change. Some therapies might be more effective. We need to have more researches, but it is believed that they might be more effective with the acid attack victims. Firstly, cognitive behavior therapy, because obviously they can bring about a change in their outlook towards life, in removing the cognitive distortions that they have, and obviously acceptance and commitment therapy. Because we cannot change the fact that this event happened, but we can bring about a certain kind of an acceptance that, okay, this happened, this is a part of my experience, I cannot deny that, but then I want to move ahead with this experience, that this happened, and I will move ahead in life with this. So from that point of view, acceptance and commitment therapy might be effective. Apart from that, certain other measures that can be taken to ensure that the psychological rehabilitation occurs, is the effective implementation of compensation schemes. So there was a research paper that talked about how the acid attack victims in the other parts of the country and in the state, in Haryana, how they are doing in comparison to the other parts of the country. And people found, because the compensation schemes were effectively implemented in Haryana, they're not saying कि वहाँ attack नहीं होता है, attacks were definitely there, mental health issues were definitely there, but because the compensation schemes were effectively implemented, because of that, the condition was slightly better. So this is one thing. Apart from that, now with the implementation of the RPWD Act of 2016, acid attack has been identified as a disability. Like, the conditions resulting from acid attack have been identified as benchmark disability, depending on the kind of impairment that occurs. And based on that, they may be given reservation in schools, in colleges, which can go a long way to improve their social inclusion. Apart from that, skill development is extremely important. Like, we cannot make them dependent. If they're not finding jobs, we have to find a way to either remove those prejudices or ensure that they become self sufficient. So there is an NGO that is working with acid attack victims, and they started with these cafes that are being managed completely by acid attack victims. So these cafes were running pretty well. One was in Agra, the other one was in Lucknow. But the problem that it occurred at the time of the lockdown. So this cafe was suddenly shut down, and these close to 60 victims who were earning from these cafes, they had no jobs. So for some time, the NGO tried to sustain them by providing salaries from the funds. But when the lockdown extended, this problem persisted and it intensified further. And then they realized that there is a need to diversify their skills, because that was the point when they realized that besides managing this cafe, besides cooking, besides cleaning here, besides managing the funds here, we do not know anything else. And that is how they came up with other methods in which they can improve their skills. They utilize this lockdown period to learn different skills, and they have started another initiative there where they're making gifts and they're selling those gifts to the people, and whatever revenue they are able to generate through that, they are using for giving away the salaries of these victims and for their treatment. So this is another very important thing, that diversification of their skills is needed. And even IGNOU has taken a step in that direction. It is trying to educate acid attack victims about the need for diversification of skills, and they are giving them reservations for higher education and so on and so forth, which can again help in their social inclusion. And in my research, I was able to observe that those victims who were somehow socially included, who felt that they were involved, because there were politicians coming into these cafes and there were celebrities who were coming in, customers who were talking to them nicely, so they felt accepted. This kind of social inclusion provided them a kind of a meaning in life, that okay, I'm doing something worthwhile in life. They provided that sense of acceptance, and this actually helped them. And those two victims, like there were two victims I saw that who could not be a part of that process for some or the other reason, and their symptoms, like they continued to score high on Beck depression inventory. So these problems persisted. So I think social support is one of the most important aspect in their treatment, and obviously support from mental health professionals. So now I would like to, like, if anyone wants to have an interaction, they want to ask questions, I would be happy to answer that.
Yes, ma'am. This is Nidhi, your another co-moderator for the session. So we have some questions through audience. So first one is, what would be the mentality of the attacker? Like,
Okay.
why did he or she did that?
Okay. So there are several reasons why that is happening, like many reasons why acid attack is happening. Sometimes people, like the most common idea is that the woman has rejected the advances, the romantic and sexual advances of the guy, and that is why she's being attacked. And even it's happening the other way around as well. However, there are various factors, like various things that goes on into the mind of the offender. First is that they don't want to kill them, they just want them to make them suffer. So the idea is very sadistic in nature. Second idea is the objectification of the victim, that okay, your identity is your face, I'm going to take that away from you. Like I told you, in certain cases, they are treated like property. They have to take revenge from the male member of the family. So they target the woman who is under the protection of that man. In certain cases, the idea is that you are a woman and you have to be subservient. You have to be at my service all the time. I'm the man of the family. If you do not agree with what I say, then I'm going to target you. Like this woman, all she did was she said that, okay, whatever child we have, be it a girl, be it a boy, I'm going to accept it. Let's not get an abortion. And she wasn't fighting. She just said that. he threw acid on her private parts so that the baby would die because he thought that this is going to be a girl. And that is why she is refusing to get the abortion done. So there are various reasons, and also the easy availability of acid over time, like why to use gun, and the punishment for that will be higher. Like if you use a gun, it's simply attempt to murder. And until 2013, there was no separate section for acid attack. It was dealt under grievous injury section. So in that case, the punishment was also lower. So the another idea is that okay, the consequences will be lesser if I throw acid than if I use a gun or a knife, because then I will be charged with attempt to murder. So this is what goes on in the mind of the offender.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, the another question is, what is the role of parenting in teaching their children that rejections are the part of it?
It's extremely important. It's extremely important because see, first thing is that we need to gender sensitize our children, right? And that starts at family level itself. You cannot expect school where they're spending few hours, and in that few hours also they have to study the curriculum as well. So you cannot expect just the teachers or just the friends to gender sensitize people, but gender sensitization begins at home itself. And in today's world, kind of helicopter parenting that is happening, anything that the child asks for, parents are bringing in and giving it to the child. This is extremely problematic. I seriously request, I'm not even suggesting, I'm requesting everyone out there to gender sensitize your children, to tell them to respect and understand the challenges faced by all the other people and respect their decisions. If a person has said no, that means no, and it is not an evaluation of you, it's not an evaluation of your worth. It simply means that the person has a different preference. It doesn't mean that she has hurt your ego or has said that you are not worth being a boyfriend or a partner for that matter. So I think parents have a very important role, and they need to understand these things themselves first, because you will come across people who are themselves not sensitized. So for them to sensitize the next generation would be equally challenging.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, last question of the session is, NCRB के data के according, men are also victims of acid attack, and even they also release the data. The 40% of males are also acid attack victims in 2018. So, what's your take on this? Like, we know that this crime is usually mainly against women, but now it is also happening against men. So, what's your take on this?
Okay, so for this, first of all, I would like to tell you the history of acid attack. So I briefly told in the beginning of today's session that acid attack began in Victoria, Britain. There was a time long back in 1879 or something when there was a wave of vitriolage. Vitriolage is another term for acid attack. There was a wave of vitriolage in France where there were several cases of acid attack. And in all those cases, majority of those cases, the offenders were women. It was over time that it acquired a gendered aspect, and the offenders became men, more of victims became females. But back then, like some data would suggest that there were more females who were the offenders. And there is another person who's specifically working in the field of history of acid attack in UK. So she pointed out that her name is Dr. Watson, and she has pointed out that there is just these cases were just more popularized. The cases where women were the victims, because you expect a woman to be kind and very nurturing in nature, and these cases they just garnered more attention. And in those cases also, it was like the acid attack was not seen as much of an offense. Why? Because many of these women, they had attacked their husbands who were cheating on them. So the court saw this as a case ki theek hai, you have just acted for your honor. So they were not followed by very severe punishment. And gradually, when it started spreading to other parts of the world, it acquired a different kind of an aspect to it, where more offenders were males and more victims were females, but we cannot deny that yes, there are males as victims too. It's just that the nature of that attack that changes, like the reason behind that attack that changes. Women are being attacked more either because domestic violence is culminating into acid attack की लड़ाइयाँ चल रही हैं, address नहीं किया गया, बढ़ते 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 it has led to acid attack. Either it is कि you are a woman, remain subservient. If you do not cater to these demands of femininity, then you will be attacked. Or because you have rejected, you have hurt my ego, you have rejected me, so I'm attacking you. But in case of males, it is more like a gang war or some kind of a other dispute. कि कोई भी लड़ाई हुई, so gun would be more expensive, so let us just throw acid and this would teach them a lesson. And this, if you know about the Bhagalpur blindings case on which the movie Gangajal was also made, Bhagalpur blindings case was that the police had tried to kind of discipline people by throwing acid, right? So it occurred as a kind of an observational learning. Still in Bhagalpur, you will still find cases where for menial crimes, people are being attacked for acid. So yes, there are males on whom acid attacks are happening, and yes, there have been cases where women have attacked them because they said, no, I don't want to marry you. But then, if you see the overall picture, the nature of those crimes are slightly different. The reasons behind them are slightly different.
Yes, ma'am. That's all, ma'am. So, ma'am, on the behalf of Cyclops, we would like to extend our heartfelt appreciation and gratitude towards our speaker today, Dr. Shalini Mittal, for enlightening us with her outstanding knowledge and experience. Ma'am, today you have truly helped us to expand the mindset on this taboo and really stigmatized topic which no one could ever speak upon. And it was a truly and absolutely mind-blowing session with you. Now I would like to extend my gratitude towards Cyclops for giving us this unique opportunity to enlighten us with this unique experience. Special thanks to my co-host Adiba and to the entire team of Cyclops, without which this won't be happened. And last thanks to our audience for their interactive questions. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone who joined in today.